Hey music nerds, how's it going? Today I thought it'd be fun to share with you a project that I've gotten new inspiration to dive into and finish. It's a song cycle based on selected Brothers Grimm tales. The tales I've picked are short little parable style. Anyway, so I've set a couple of them in the past for soprano and assorted instruments. One of them is based on fair quaternelli and pith-path poultry for soprano, flute, cello, and piano. And there's another one I did just a couple of years later or so that's from The Old Beggar Woman for soprano and violin. And so what came about from those projects was this idea to create 5 more movements based on 5 other Brothers Grimm tales and set them for soprano and different combinations of the piano, cello, flute, and violin instruments. Recently I got in contact with a few sopranos who've been really interested in doing my work, and I said to myself, why not bring out that old project and work on finishing it. It's high time that song cycle is done. So I finally yesterday got out my computer, set up my files for all 7 movements, and got to work. And I started working on the final movement, which is based on the golden key. And I really enjoyed just diving in and setting the lyrics to it. And I thought it might be fun to do a video for you to talk about how I go about setting melodies with weird lyrics. So this is a lyric setting for art song. Do you ever do that? Do you ever take a song and you have the melody in your head and you just pop out funny words that fit, right? So how do we do that? And what does that say about the musical line? Let's take the song Moon River. So you probably recognize that melody, and the words of course go, Moon River. So what are the syllables? Moon, river. And just those 3 syllables can indicate where a melody ought to go. So where's the stress? Where's the movement? All of those can be linked with notes. Moon has this nice open long sound, so Mancini decides to hold it on a dotted half note. Moon, and then river. We've already decided we're in 3/4. Now in the meter of 3/4, typically the first beat, the first quarter note, is the emphasized one. Let's try a variant on Moon River. Blue water. Wa is an emphasized syllable, so water works really well with that pattern. So let's try something really dumb that has 3 syllables still, but the emphasis is wrong. Dirty patch. Dirty patch. It doesn't really work, right? So you gotta look at the flow of the phrase. Every phrase has a point that's emphasized and a point that's let go. And what you can do is you can do that with your notes. So whatever melody you pick, you want to look at where is the strong point, and you can manipulate the meter too. You can do some really wacky meters and convince the listener that the emphasis is in the right place based on where you put the notes. So rhythm in this case is a lot of times more important than meter. So the lyrics I have here for the golden key, and I'll only focus on the very first sentence. The first sentence goes, in the winter time, when deep snow lay on the ground, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. It reads great, right? So what we need to do is segment, which if you remember what segmenting is from our first video with pitch class basics, segmenting is finding a portion of something that makes sense, like it goes together. Let's take in the winter time. In the winter time. In the winter time. Time, especially because there's a comma after it, we know we're going to add more to it. Time seems to be a brief resting place. It's not the ultimate resting place, but we could call it a lyrical half cadence, right? So, in the winter time. Now, does that feel like a swinging 3/4 type of move, or more of a square duple move? And that's an important question to ask yourself in any segment. Duple has a more square feel. Triple has a more round feel, right? So in the winter time, to me that feels very duple, duple, rest, right? So we could say eighth, 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 quarter. Now let's look at the next segment. When deep snow lay on the ground. That's a mouthful, and that doesn't really sit well. I have to admit, I kind of thought about this and the next segment, like, do I want to reword it? And I haven't reworded the other two movements, so I don't want to. I want to keep it as true to the original as I can. So let's look at when deep snow lay on the ground. Let's cut it in half. When deep snow. That's very duple. The deep is an emphasis. When deep snow. So you feel more like an up, push up. When deep snow. Do you see how that feels? When deep snow. So we want the deep to be on an emphasized note, and when is like the pickup. When deep and then snow, you release. Now lay on the ground. Lay on the ground. That feels triply. Do you feel the difference? When deep snow, lay on the ground. This is why art song works really well for weird lyrics like this, because you have the freedom to not stay in a single meter or feel. It can flow like a river. When deep snow lay on the ground. Ground is another half cadence, right? So there's our second segment. So we have and duple, triplet, land. Feel that works? When deep snow lay on the ground. All right, now the last segment. A poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. Oh my gosh, that's the one where I was like, should I find an alternate way to say that? But again, I was determined. So, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. Let's segment that segment. I mean, there's a couple ways to do it, and this is only the first run of this. This is a dry run, first draft, so I may change my mind later, depending on how I want it to go. But here was one solution I came up with yesterday. A poor boy. Okay, let's look at a poor boy. That has the same feel as when deep snow. A poor boy. A down, up. An emphasis release, right? A poor boy. And then was forced to go out. So is that more of a duple? What I wanted to do is I treated it like a duple, but I started it on an uptick from a poor boy. So it gave it sort of this rolling off the tongue feel. A poor boy was forced to go out. See? So because those little words roll off the tongue because they're getting us to the point of the sentence, I did that with my notes. A poor boy was forced to go out. And then on a sledge. Sledge is the emphasized. So I just made on a pickup, on a sledge to fetch wood. And because that's the end of my sentence, I wanted fetch wood to be an important point in that whole first line. So take a look what I did with these first 4 measures. The phrasing goes, in the winter time, when deep snow lay on the ground, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. It's not bad. It still needs a little work. Like I said, this is the first draft, so I'm gonna be tweaking it a little bit. But so once you have the rhythm of it, then you can start playing with the notes. And you might remember in some of our earlier videos, like the intervals video, the good melodies video, intervals make all the difference in the stress and the release of the flow of a piece of music. So my recommendation, what I like to do when it comes to an art song like this, is once I have my rhythmic pillars and I see where I'm going and I have my segments, I'm able to construct the melody to encourage that flow. So let's take a look at what we got here. I don't have hardly any of the harmonies with it. So again, when I put in the harmonies that I've decided I want, That may change the melodies. I'm sure it will change the melodies here and there. But what I've done is, because the first segment of In the Winter Time, I wanted the notes to stay up close for in the winter and then time. So you see how the intervals are close, and then I do that leap and I settle on time. When deep snow lay on the ground. Now I chose at this point to go up in my running, because if you break up the 3 segments, you have 2 shorter segments and 1 really long segment. That word ground is a definite halfway point between that phrase. So I wanted to land up so that we have somewhere to go going down, landing on fetch wood, right? So let's look at a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. I went up on lay on the ground, so I have to go down. I don't have to, but it makes it balanced, right? A poor boy was forced to go out. Now, because go out is a little bit of a hiccup there. Go out on a sledge, right? I'm creating this breathless feeling, this go out on a sledge. So with that, I wanted to have some kind of a feeling of coming to a cliff. And where do I go from there? Now, on a sledge to fetch wood. What I liked about on a sledge right here is that it sort of mirrored to go out on a sledge. See that? So if go out goes down, on a should go up. So again, balance, right? And then sledge is held out to fetch wood. And then we land on a new chord. So at this stage in the game, the actual notes themselves don't entirely matter. It's the shape of the melody that matters. Whether you're going up or down, when you're going up, how fast are you going up? Are you going up by step? Are you running up? Or are you jumping up? And that makes all the difference if you speak the lyrics like, was forced to go out. That's a very energetic, was forced to go out, very driving kind of pitter patter. So, I will probably consider having the notes close by, stepping and running, right, versus jumping. I like fetch wood, because it's the end of the phrase, and so that creates a nice moment to sort of jump a little bit instead of running, right? So think, when you're setting lyrics like this, think of your intervals as partners in how you're relating that energy of the lyric. So it's less about, what chord should I do to emulate this phrase? It's more subtle than that. It's more deep and more genetic, if you will, where the movement of notes, and this goes back to counterpoint. When I say I'm gonna do a counterpoint video, I love counterpoint, but this is why counterpoint is so important. What are the intervals doing, and what that does to move the music? Conjunct notes, notes that are next to each other, that don't jump, they create very little movement. They're like little ripples, right? Leaps of varying degrees create more and more energy. So a little leap, like if you know an arpeggio, do, mi, so, mi, do, those are little leaps. They create a little bit of energy, but not a lot. Say a leap of a sixth, do, la, that creates a lot of energy. It wants to go somewhere. Go back and listen to Gregorian chant. Listen to, you may not understand the Latin, you may not understand what they're singing about, but if you listen to the movement of the notes and listen to jumps versus steps, you'll see this energy change and this flow and why it flows the way it does. And what that does to our senses, what we think that means, right? Challenge yourself. See what you can do to make your rhythms and your note intervals reflect the pacing and the energy of the text you're setting, and have a lot of fun with it. I'll let you know how this piece turns out. And don't forget, I have just recently started a new backstage inner circle program for people who want to support my work directly through Bandcamp. So if you go to go.novelsoundtracks soundtracks.com/backstage. You can get all the info you need. Right now, the exclusive full studio recording of my 2008 electric violin concerto, Leviathan of the Ancient Deep, is available to backers only. So you can sign up there for the cost of just one CD. You get that exclusive recording. You get 3 other releases. You'll always get my releases ahead of everybody else, because I always put them on Bandcamp first before I release them elsewhere. And by joining that inner circle, you directly contribute toward paying the musicians who play on those albums. These are all local musicians, friends of mine in the LA area, who work hard and love what we do, and we want to create gorgeous music for you. We thank you for helping that become a reality for all of us. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time.